In this video, I'm going to explain how I changed the gearing on my Kawasaki Z1 Super 6, because when I was riding it and I was in 5th, I felt like I was in 4th looking for another gear, but I wasn't. So I had to change the back sprocket from 33 teeth to 30 using an old sprocket from my Dodge Viper bike, which I use for high-speed runs that I don't need anymore. I'm quite happy with its 200 mile/hour top speed. Well, this is the sprocket off the back of my Viper, my high-speed one with 30 teeth, and this is a Kawasaki H2 sprocket that is exactly the same as the Z1 in the middle, so I can place it over the top as a template for the drilling and machining. The first thing I do is put the sprocket in my lathe, gripping it in a 3-jaw chuck on about half of its thickness. Then I true it up initially by eye, tapping it true. When it's reasonably true, I use my dial test indicator just to true it up the last bit. With the sprocket true, I tighten the jaws. Then, using my vernier caliper, I measure the internal diameter of the Kawasaki sprocket. With the bore size measured, the next job is to machine the aluminium sprocket to the same size. I take several cuts, measuring in between. After the last cut, I use my vernier caliper to check the bore size, and it's perfect. So now I need to reverse the sprocket in the chuck to machine the other half. After the sprocket's reversed in the chuck, I start to true it up as before, and then I get it spot on, so there's no need to use the DTI. I can go straight into the machining. With the chuck tightened, I proceed to bore out the hole to match the diameter on the reverse side. I set the cross slide to 0 when I machine the diameter on the other side of the sprocket, so when I reset it to 0, the diameter will blend from one side to the other. With the centre hole machined to the correct size to fit the Z1 hub, I've now got to drill the 6 holes that match from the steel sprocket through to the aluminium sprocket. To do this, I actually clamp the 2 sprockets together with toolmaker's clamps, checking by feel that both the holes are lined up in the centre, and then I'll proceed to drill the 6 new holes with my 10mm drill. Using a 10mm drill, I drill the 6 holes, one at a time. The aluminium cuts really nicely. It's 7075 T6 and it's great to machine. With the 6 holes drilled, I release the clamps. And it looks great. So now I need to deburr the holes. I return it to my drill and use my deburring tool to remove the sharp edges and produce a nice chamfer on both sides of each hole. With the deburring complete, the sprocket's finished and it looks great. So now I can go back out in the garden and remove the wheel. The rear wheel of a Kawasaki Z1 can be removed easily without taking off the silencers if you just loosen the nut to release the pressure on the axle. Remove this bolt here, 12mm spanner. Once that's out, do the same on the other side. Like that. Then remove the chain link if you have one fitted. It always flies off, but I found it and here it is. With the spring link removed, I rotate the wheel slightly so that I can remove the actual link. Then I remove the split pin from the torque arm securing bolt and loosen the nut. With the nut and washers removed, the torque arm slides off and can hang down out of the way. Then the wheel can simply be pulled backwards out of the bike. I rotate the wheel slightly in the direction of travel to prevent the chain from being pulled off the engine sprocket. With the axle and brake plate removed, there's sufficient room to slide the wheel across and remove the sprocket carrier along with the sprocket. Then, back in the garage, I remove the sprocket from the sprocket carrier by loosening the 6 nuts. I remove the old sprocket and offer up the new one, and it fits perfect. I replace the 6 bolts and nuts, tightening them up with my socket and then tapping over the tab washers. Back in the garden, with the wheel assembled, I slide it back into the swinging arm. Then replace the 2 end plates and 2 securing bolts. With the bolts tightened, I slide up the chain adjusters and check the wheel spins. I offer up the chain, but it's too long because the sprocket's smaller because it has less teeth, so I need to use my chain splitter to remove 1 link. I assemble my chain splitter with the correct size pin for the 630 chain. Then I clamp the chain in the chain splitter. Once tight, I use my ratchet spanner to push out the pin and the link is separated perfectly. So now the chain is the correct length for the 32th sprocket. I pull the chain tight and check it fits the sprocket nicely, which it does, and both ends line up perfectly. So now I can refit the spring link. With the chain link fitted, I tension the chain and then do up the wheel spindle nut. Then we're all ready for the next ride out once I've balanced the carbs, which is my next job to do. I hope you enjoyed this video on how I converted to gearing on my Kawasaki Z1 Super 6. I'm all ready now to go out for another road test once I've balanced the carbs, but I'm just waiting for the new vacuum gauges to come and then we're in business. So see you soon for a proper updated road test.